All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about something that's right at the heart of politics, but it's something we almost never stop to think about: the calendar. Yeah, you heard me. We're looking at the scarcity of time in the UK Parliament and what that does to, well, pretty much everything else.
So just to kick things off, I've got a question for you. Out of 365 days in a year, how many do you think MPs actually spend in the House of Commons chamber, formally debating, scrutinising and voting on laws? Go on, just take a guess.
The answer, in a typical year, is around 150. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes a little less, but yeah, that's the ballpark. Just let that sink in for a second. 150.
Now look, if your reaction is something along these lines, you are definitely not alone. It's a number that really surprises people. And that surprise, well, that's exactly what this explainer is all about. Why does that number feel so low, and what are the consequences?
Because this isn't just some quirky piece of trivia, right? Getting your head around this number, this scarcity, is actually the key to understanding why so much of modern politics looks and feels the way it does.
And this slide just illustrates the disconnect perfectly. Our experience of politics, it's constant. It's 24/7. It feels like there's a never-ending stream of crises that demand constant attention. But the actual structure of Parliament is completely different. It's built on these intense blocks of work, followed by these long breaks or recesses.
And that brings us to the core issue here, a fundamental mismatch between the rhythm of Parliament and, well, the rhythm of the modern world.
Now, let's be super clear. When Parliament isn't sitting, it's not like MPs just disappear and go on vacation. A huge amount of their work continues in their constituencies and in select committees. But the central mechanism of government scrutiny, the debates and votes in the main chamber, that gets switched off. And the crucial point is, crises don't really care about the parliamentary calendar.
The very existence of a process called recall pretty much proves this point. Recall isn't part of the normal plan. It's an emergency button. It's basically an admission that the whole system is built on this assumption of long, quiet pauses that reality just doesn't provide anymore. It's a patch for when the world is moving way faster than the schedule. And this scarcity, this is where things get really, really interesting. Because when a resource is this limited, it fundamentally changes how people behave. Time stops being just a schedule and starts being a form of power. The moment you accept there are only so many days, so many hours on the clock, time itself becomes a political resource. It's something to be won, to be lost, to be defended, and yet to be used as leverage.
And what's so fascinating about this slide is how it reframes things we all find frustrating about politics. You know those ridiculously long, repetitive speeches? Well, they can be a perfectly rational tactic to just run down the clock. Rushing complex legislation through Parliament? It might be the only way to get it passed in the time available. It's not always about bad faith. Often, it's about rational responses to an extreme constraint.
Okay, here's a practical example. You don't even have to vote against a bill to defeat it. If you can just use up all the available debate time with endless amendments and long speeches, you can literally make sure it never even reaches a final vote. The clock itself becomes the weapon. It's a quiet, procedural victory won simply by manipulating the schedule.
And there's a more subtle, but maybe even more important consequence here. In a system that's so crunched for time, there's just no room for complexity. Detailed, nuanced arguments, amendments that deal with tricky second-order effects, they just get pushed aside. The default becomes, we'll fix that later.
So, what does survive this compression? Well, exactly the things that fit. Clear slogans are way faster than complex explanations. Simple yes or no debates are much easier to have than dealing with nuanced positions. The system itself quietly filters and selects for the kind of political discourse that can actually thrive in a time-poor environment.
So you might be thinking, is this normal? Do all countries run their legislatures this way? The short answer is a big fat no. Let's take a quick look at some alternatives.
This table shows the contrast so beautifully. The UK model is built on interruption, these intense on periods and then long off periods. Now, compare that to a continuity model like you see in Germany. The work is spread out much more evenly, and crucially, committees work right through the year, so urgent issues can be handled within a more regular rhythm, without all the drama of a recall.
So the crucial takeaway here is that the goal of these other systems isn't nonstop, 24/7 parliamentary sessions. It's all about continuity. It's about creating a system that can manage pressure by spreading it out over the year, instead of letting it build up during recesses and then explode into a compressed, frantic sitting period.
Which brings us to our conclusion. This isn't just some academic argument. This is about a system that's under very real and very constant pressure, a pressure that actually distorts behavior.
And I really want to stress this again. This isn't about blaming MPs for being lazy or cynical. It's just what happens in any system where demand massively exceeds capacity. Think about a hospital emergency room triaging patients, or a court system with a huge backlog. Parliament is basically doing the same thing, but it's doing it with arguments and legislation.
So here it is, the core mismatch in a nutshell. We have a government that's expected to be constantly responsive 24/7, but it's being scrutinized by a parliamentary structure that was built for a much, much slower era, an era of long, quiet pauses. And the result? The whole process of scrutiny gets turned off right at the moments when issues are getting more complex and demanding more attention.
Ultimately, it all comes down to this. When time itself is the scarcest resource in the entire system, everything changes. The schedule, the process, that becomes the political battleground. Getting seen becomes more important than getting things right. And performance, looking decisive, looking active, starts to become way more valuable than the patient, difficult work of detailed scrutiny.
And that leaves us with one final, crucial question. If you are an MP in this system with brutally limited time and a structure that rewards performance over patience, how do you decide where to put your energy? What do you prioritize? That choice, driven by the simple scarcity of time, is what shapes the politics we all see every single day.